$11,271 monthly, and the word caregiver still doesn't pass the test. Professor Antonov studies how disability rules turn care needs into evidence, which is exactly where R.2 gets difficult. Watch the care worker move from support to written notes. Later, one monthly clinician check rule will decide whether that paper trail is complete.
R.2 is a care classification, not a caregiver label. The published amount is real, but the label on the helper proves nothing by itself.
That's the first correction. A spouse, adult child, or paid aide can do enormous work and still leave the legal question unanswered. The claim needs the correct foundation and the correct kind of assistance. It also needs an evidence trail showing what happens without that care.
Today we go deeper into the highest aid and attendance branch, where the exact service matters more than the number of hours someone is present.
The foundation comes first. Compensation at SMC-O or the maximum rate under SMC-P. Does an ordinary 100% rating substitute for that finding? No, however serious the disabilities may be. This isn't for a file that shows only an ordinary 100% rating, even permanent and total.
Regular aid and attendance is the next finding. Dressing and feeding can establish that need. So can hygiene and toileting. Prosthetic adjustment or protection from daily hazards can qualify too. R.2 then asks a harder question about healthcare services.
Harder means substantial daily personal health care in the home, delivered by a licensed person or under regular licensed oversight. More companionship, more cooking, or more housekeeping doesn't become R.2 simply because it happens every day.
And the counterfactual carries real weight. Without the higher level service, the veteran would require hospitalization or nursing home care. Another residential institution can also satisfy that consequence. This isn't a rhetorical flourish, it's part of the test.
That means a diagnosis alone can't carry the last gate. The clinician should explain what fails without the service and why ordinary check-ins wouldn't keep the veteran safely at home.
Specific consequences matter. A missed sterile dressing may create an infection risk. A missed therapeutic exercise may cost function. Those mechanisms make the institutional alternative understandable.
And the evidence should describe the veteran's actual day. Boilerplate about possible complications is weaker than a provider explaining the service this person needs tomorrow morning. The statute makes that institutional care consequence part of the test. One more stacking correction. R.2 is paid instead of R.1. It isn't R.1 plus a bonus. VA's published note says an R basic rate doesn't receive a separate K addition.
The rate table prints R.2 and T in one column because the monthly amount matches. The legal roots don't. T is a separate TBI provision and deserves its own analysis rather than a footnote smuggled into this one.
Lewis, you've been staring at the phrase everyday help like it owes you an explanation. Put the uncomfortable question on the stage.
It does owe us one. If a family caregiver is there every day, what exactly turns that help into R.2 care?
That word, turns, is the hinge. Free guides are at va.professorerica.com. Coming up, the monthly review rule most families never see. Before we keep going, one small favor that actually moves the needle. If this is landing for you, tap like, then subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss the rest. 2 taps, completely free, and it pushes this in front of more people who need it. Three locks sit between a severe disability picture and R.2. Miss one, and the $11,000 number is a distraction.
We already ran this experiment in every 3-checkpoint system. Clearing the last checkpoint can't rescue a failure at the first. The VA reviewer must trace the veteran through the foundation, ordinary aid and attendance, and then the higher care test.
Lock 1 is compensation at SMC-O or the maximum rate under SMC-P. A scheduler 100% rating, even permanent and total, isn't the same legal foundation.
Lock 2 is the separate need for regular aid and attendance. Help with dressing and bathing belongs here. So does assistance eating, adjusting a prosthetic device, or staying safe from hazards.
Lewis, that second lock matters because R.2 doesn't erase the ordinary aid and attendance analysis. It sits on top of it as a more demanding care finding while replacing the R.1 payment classification.
Lock 3 is daily higher-level healthcare. What makes this lock different? Visible wound cleaning and dressing steps show why the rule focuses on the nature of the task, not merely that someone was helpful.
The clip illustrates trained wound care. It doesn't prove anyone's entitlement and wasn't filmed as a VA claim example. In a real file, the medical evidence must connect the task to the veteran's condition. It must also show the each-day need and identify the person qualified to perform or oversee it.
A common mistake is to lead with the scheduler rating letter that says 100% and then jump directly to R.2. That skips the findings that Congress and the regulation actually require.
So the claim isn't simply "I am 100% and my daughter helps every day." Build the findings in order by naming the O or Max P Foundation first, then prove regular aid and attendance before the skilled service, licensed oversight, and institutional consequence.
What does skilled wound care look like when the task is visible? Watch the continuous cleaning and dressing sequence, then notice what the record would need to name.
What should the claim take from that demonstration? Name the task, connect it to the condition, and identify who performs or oversees it. The footage illustrates skill, it proves no one's entitlement.
That's why an evidence index helps. My allotment rows follow the same brutal logic. Each thing needs its own place, or the plot becomes weeds. Put the rating decision beside the foundation, then group the care plan and clinician notes under higher level care.
The index isn't a substitute for evidence. It's a map that keeps useful family help from arriving as an unmarked box of paper.
And hold one number for the next room. Daily doesn't mean that every useful thing the caregiver does becomes healthcare. We're going to separate qualifying functions from household support before this scene's argument gets comfortable.
Build the findings in order. Money comes after the locks because a clean legal route is worth more than a dramatic opening demand. Back with us, Professor Antonov. If being present isn't the test, which services actually move a file toward higher level care?
Start with functions a healthcare professional provides or would provide absent trained clinical direction. That includes administering medication and giving injections. It can also include sterile dressings, catheter management, and directed therapeutic exercises. The list is illustrative, not a shortcut.
Count personal healthcare services, not general presence. That's the skilled task filter.
Medication administration can qualify when the evidence shows what is administered and why the veteran can't safely manage it. The notes should also identify who performs the task and how often it happens. A medication list by itself answers only the first question.
Injections make the skill visible, but don't let an obvious example shrink the rule. The service still has to be personal and substantial. It must occur each day and connect to the need for care in the home.
Sterile dressings and catheter care can qualify. The surprise is how quickly documentation can flatten those into the useless phrase, caregiver assistance provided. That phrase hides the very facts the rule asks VA to evaluate.
A strong note names the body system or condition and the intervention. It also states the frequency and the consequence of missing it. That creates a bridge to the institutional care counterfactual rather than asking the adjudicator to invent one.
Therapeutic exercise is another place where vague wording loses the thread. The notes should distinguish casual movement from an exercise program directed to treat a condition or preserve function.
The same goes for medication. Opening a bottle isn't the whole story. The claim may turn on dose selection and administration. Monitoring or the safety consequence may matter when cognition or motor limits prevent self-management.
Frequency belongs beside each function. If wound care occurs every other day but medication administration occurs daily, say that plainly. The combined care picture must still satisfy the substantial daily requirement.
And avoid turning one good week into a lifetime statement. Use enough dated records to show the care pattern is regular and current, then let the medical explanation connect that pattern to the underlying need.
That's the difference between a list of chores and a clinical care record. One says what happened. The other explains the skilled function, the reason, and the risk.
So cooking every meal still doesn't count as higher level care.
Not by itself.
Right, cooking and cleaning may be indispensable. Transportation, companionship, and general presence may be indispensable too, but they don't become personal health care services merely because a loving relative performs them each day.
The premise changes here. Daily presence isn't daily higher level care. Which side of that line does the evidence actually prove? A directed therapeutic exercise can be a trained function, and the file must isolate it from the rest of a caregiver's very real labor.
That separation is respectful, not dismissive. It credits household support honestly while preserving the statutory distinction for services that would otherwise require professional delivery or clinical direction.
Tie every claimed task to its frequency, skill, and clinical need. Covered.
Professor Antonov, thank you for making that skill-task distinction concrete. The service categories that carry the file: 3. Once each month. Once each month. That cadence is the minimum for a family caregiver.
That pays the promise. The helper may be family, but the clinician check can't be assumed.
Unlicensed care needs regular oversight from a licensed healthcare professional.
The regulation defines regular supervision as consultation at least once each month.
The contact can even occur by telephone.
To borrow Erica's phrase, the skilled task filter needs a consultation trail, not a family title.
Relatives get no exemption. The same rule applies to a spouse or child. It also applies to a parent or neighbor.
No exemption. No exemption. Love explains who helps. It doesn't replace the clinician check.
The rule also expects the caregiver to follow a regimen prescribed by a healthcare professional.
Pause right here and grab your rating letter. Read whether the decision identifies the R.2 finding or only aid in attendance. Mark that wording before you touch the care log.
Then pull one recent month of care notes. Document the dates and skilled tasks. Identify the supervisor and anything that changed.
The consultation note should say what was reviewed, what instruction was given, and whether the regimen changed.
A call log without clinical substance proves contact, not the required consultation. I mean, prove the substance, not merely the dial.
That paperwork sounds small until a missing month breaks the pattern VA is evaluating. Bureaucracy loves a calendar. Consider Miguel, a hypothetical 72-year-old veteran with severe tremor and diabetes.
His daughter prepares the prescribed insulin, and because the tremor makes self-dosing.
But daughter isn't a license. The file still needs regular clinician checks on that family care.
Assume the nurse consults monthly and reviews Miguel's glucose log by telephone.
The note records the consultation date and confirms the current insulin regimen.
It also records new instructions after 2 unsafe readings. Now the consultation has substance.
Next month, the note should not merely copy the prior month's sentence.
It should show another consultation and what the professional actually reviewed.
If nothing changed, say that. A stable regimen is still a clinical conclusion.
If the call was missed, don't manufacture a clean timeline after the fact. Document the gap honestly.
Document the gap honestly, because if the family relationship excused it,
And the family relationship changes none of that?
none. The regulation explicitly withholds a relative caregiver exemption from the monthly consultation requirement.
Miguel's example turns 4 labels into dated tasks and instructions. The result is a reviewable pattern.
Before we get to the rate difference, hold on to that pattern. Payment follows proof. Proof doesn't follow payment.
Lewis, on the record, the governing statute is strict because R.2 assumes an unusually high and continuing level of home care.
That's why one missed label matters less than a missing clinical connection. Make the connection visible.
One clean cycle isn't the whole claim, but it shows the evidence architecture.
That monthly model gives us the final question. If the helper performs skilled care each day, what turns those notes into the final R.2 proof?
Those notes become final proof only when they trace the entire legal chain, including what institutional care would otherwise be required.
Put the packet in adjudication order, starting with the qualifying foundation and regular aid and attendance. Follow with the prescribed regimen and day-by-day skilled service logs. Then add the clinician check and medical explanation of the institutional alternative. Each page should answer one link. Don't make a reviewer hunt for the sentence that connects them. A thick file can still have a missing bridge. The current R.2 minus R.1 difference is $1,444.79 monthly.
Here's the ruling. Audit in the same order as the test. My card catalog cabinet has labeled drawers for the same reason. Retrieval fails when categories collapse.
Right, 3 service categories helped us separate skilled care from household labor. Now every provider note needs the same precision.
Watch the clinician frame patient notes, name the task, timing, and clinical reason.
Exactly. A note saying assistance every day is vague. A note saying sterile dressing change every morning under the nurse's written regimen is testable.
Explain why the service must happen at home.
Yeah. Link a missed service to the actual consequence. That may be infection risk or unsafe medication. It may be lost therapeutic function or required institutional placement.
But the stacking correction changes the money. R.2 replaces R.1, so the 2 monthly rates don't stack together.
For 2026, R.1 for a veteran alone is $9,826.88.
The 2026 difference is $1,444.79 monthly. Send that number to the family member keeping the care notes because the missing link may be worth that much every month.
So R.1 plus that difference equals $11,271.67. Does that mean a veteran can add SMC-K after reaching R.2?
No. VA's table says K isn't added to an R basic rate.
Right, so K disappears as a recognized loss.
The separate K payment isn't added to the R rate. That's the precise upshot. Don't rewrite it into a finding the source doesn't make.
I'm leaning in for this one. File the chain, not the label.
And keep SMCT separate. It shares the published amount but uses a distinct TBI route, so stacking and eligibility need their own episode. Erica, my marching order is simple. Ask the clinician to describe the skilled function performed each day and the monthly consultation, because without exact,
use exact dates and exact tasks. Then compare the clinician's statement with the daily logs. If one says medication administration and the other says general help, reconcile that wording before filing rather than hoping an adjudicator treats the phrases as identical. The same audit applies to frequency. Every day in one document and occasional in another isn't a harmless style difference when day-by-day care is part of the legal test.
Resolve the contradiction with truthful, updated evidence. Never coach a provider toward words the medical facts don't support.
Here is what I would actually do. Audit 1 month against every link, fix truthful contradictions, and ask the clinician to explain the institutional consequence. Walk away with this. File the chain, not the caregiver label.
Field.
If this audit made your evidence trail easier to read, like the episode and subscribe for the standalone SMCT breakdown. Which link in your own care record is documented clearly, and which one still depends on an assumption. Take care of yourself, and I will meet you in the next one.